waving in the background. We're super excited to have this event tonight. I'm just going to give people a few more minutes to join before we officially kick things off. How's everybody dealing with the unusually cold October day?
Love it.
We got some thumbs up and some down. It's kind of a mixed bag how we feel about the colder weather.
Yeah, as long as it's cold and sunny, I'm good.
Yeah, so it's the gray that you don't like.
Too cold. Too cold.
It's scarf season. Scarf season.
Scarf and sweaters. I had to put on slippers today. It's great tea weather. Anybody who likes, warm tea, yeah. Great tea weather.
It's good boot weather. You can wear our boots. It's good boot weather.
There you go. Okay, I see we have 62 people. What time is it? It is 5:32. I'm gonna give everybody one more minute before I kick it off. We got a full program, so I can't delay too much. Okay, so hi, I'm Emmy Chilton. I'm the president of AWT. It is my pleasure to serve on the board. I just want to say thank you to our new board members that we have on the board. Denise Pena is going to be joining as programs director, and Taryn Wise will be joining as membership director, and Ashley Stack will be joining as sponsorship director. And we just had those elections since our last event, so I wanted to say welcome to those ladies who are joining us. We are very excited to have tonight's event with NXP and Amazon. We've worked together to put this event together in a relatively short period of time in the last few weeks. And thanks to the AWT board members who worked so hard and so diligently with the NXP and Amazon team to get 100 and some people registered. And I see we have 70 participants already. I think that might be one of our largest virtual events. So it's super exciting. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jessica with NXP to tell us a little bit more about them.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Cooper Adams. I'm a process engineer, and I'm also the co-chair of our women's ERG group at NXP. NXP is an American Dutch semiconductor manufacturer. We have our headquarters in the Netherlands. We're built on 60 years of combined experience and expertise. And the company has about 30,000 employees, and we're across 30 countries. We posted about 9 billion revenue in 2019. We have 2 sites in Austin, one at the Y in Oak Hill, and then one site near the airport off MLK and 183. So NXP enables secure connections and infrastructure for a smarter world, advancing solutions that make lives easier, better, and safer, from automotive grade solutions through Industrial 4.0, IoT, the convenience of mobile and next generation communications technology allows us to drive the development of smart connected devices. So we are excited to partner with Amazon and Austin Women Tech, coupled with all the leaders, all the speakers being brilliant leaders. The panelists each bring something unique to the table with their background, their career path, their life experience and skills. So I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to gather their insights tonight. I want to thank you for coming out tonight from NXP. I'm looking forward to the panel and networking. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Ashley with Amazon.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm Ashley Gerwick at Amazon, and I'm a technical recruiter. Been there for about 2.5 years. One fun fact is Amazon sold its first book in 1995, and it actually shipped from Jeff Bezos's garage in Seattle. Today, Amazon is much more than a bookstore or an e-commerce marketplace. Our products and services include AWS, Prime Video, Amazon Music, Fire tablets, Fire TV, Echo and Alexa products, and the Kindle Reader. Amazon has grown to be a worldwide organization with over nearly 1 million employees. And we have 1,000 employees right here in Austin. We are continuing to grow our technical teams in most of our locations, including Nashville and in Austin. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley, and thank you, Jessica, for letting us know about your awesome companies. So we're going to start our next section, which is if you've been on any of our virtual events recently, you will be familiar, but for all of you that are just joining, we've been doing something that we call networking roulette, which is a way that we are allowing our attendees to be able to have as much of a face-to-face interaction with the other folks that are at the event. So how it works is we're going to have 3 questions that we pose some great people and made some good connections. We'll have other opportunities to connect with everybody else at the end of the event. But right now we're going to head into our event for the evening. So I'm going to toss it over to Jennifer Bennett from NXP, who will be moderating tonight's event, and she'll be going through our panelists with you guys. Enjoy.
All right. I'm so glad everyone's here. So I'm going to give a big shout out to my NXP who are on this call. I'm Jennifer Bennett. I'll be your moderator tonight with all of these amazing leaders. Thank you for joining us. What I hope everybody gets out of this event tonight is some new meaningful connections to this event. You're on the Zoom call with 92 of your new best friends, so don't forget to connect. And also hear from the panelists as we are talking through leading through adversity. This is a season that we are all dealing with together. And so we want to hear from the panelists on how we build trust virtually, how to survive, how to thrive, not just survive. We're in survival mode, but we want to thrive during this period. And then some key tips on how to stay creative during the stress. There's a lot of things going on. Work from home brings new dynamics with kids in the background working virtually, sometimes animals, whatever you have going on in your personal life. There's a lot of different things going on with the stress of the pandemic. And so how do we stay creative and innovative during those seasons? So I'm going to kick it off. I'm going to hand the baton because I don't think I can do it justice to the panelists by going through all of their backgrounds. I think it'd be best from them. So I'm going to hand the baton over to my panelists. And first off, I'd like to hand the baton over to Tanya Tarr. So Tanya, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, oh,
I can hear you.
Okay, great. I'm a huge fan of Zoom and breakout rooms. So I live here in Austin, Texas, and do a lot of different things. These days, I call myself a behavioral scientist because that's really what I like to do with corporations. I run my own learning and development training firm called Cultivated Insights. I'm also kicking off something called the Cultivated School in January. And I'm also later on going to drop in the chat. Quarterly, I do free negotiation classes. And as I was telling my breakout group, despite the fact that I write an advice column and have for the last 4 years with Forbes about negotiation and leadership, I think all advice is garbage. I think the best advice that you could ever have, especially when it comes to negotiation, is the advice of your own experience. And so that's what I've been building and continue to build, as a protected, safe space for people to learn how to negotiate with low stakes, so that when they're moving through their life, whether it is, their work or buying a house or buying a car or negotiating with their loved ones, that they're able to do that with compassion and with a collaborative spirit. I'm super excited to learn from the other panelists. And I'm going to pass the baton, back to you, Jennifer. Yes.
Thanks, Tanya. Okay, I definitely glad that you went through that because I could have not done that amazingness justice. You are like a superstar. So thank you, Hart. All right, let's hear from Deirdre.
Hey everybody, good evening. My name is Deirdre Walsh, and my day job is serving as the Director of Global Marketing and Communications at another semiconductor company in town, Silicon Labs. Besides that, I'm a former LGBTQ Tech and Innovation Fellow under President Obama. So really my passion area is how do we use technology for the greater good? And then I think most importantly, I'm wife to a lovely woman sitting next to me who has no idea I was going to call her out, who's doing a puzzle right now to reduce her stress. And we have 2 awesome dogs that you'll probably see running around in the background here.
Thanks, Deirdre. That's super awesome. Super impressive being under the Obama administration. Like, kudos right there, girl. That's super impressive. All right, let's hear from Ginnette. She's gonna blow us away with her accent.
You stole my thunder. I'm joining you guys from Chicago, where we are already experiencing the snow. I'm the Senior Vice President for the Specialist Staffing Group. I've spent the last 15 years in talent acquisition and talent management. My current role is to lead the sales strategy and operations across North America for our life science brand, which is Real Staffing. Real's the 5th largest life science staffing and consulting firm in North America. We're on track for our most successful year. So I'm definitely looking forward to sharing a few strategies today around how we have continued to thrive amongst the backdrop of, let's just say, a lot of uncertainty, chaos, turbulence. I'm really excited to be on the panel with everyone else. Passion for me is really about my 7-year-old little boy, who I love being a mum to, and I'm extremely passionate and an outspoken advocate around diversity and inclusion. I strongly believe in equality for all. So thank you so much for having me on the panel, Jennifer.
Thanks, Ginnette. There are so many participants, which is making me like super excited. I'd like to hand it over to Erika in the little tiles, if I can find her.
Don't know if she's on, unfortunately, so we might have to just wait.
That's okay. We'll keep it rolling. Just so you guys know, if Erika works through tech issues, Erika is an amazing leader. She created the Black Science Women in Engineering firm. And so at the end of the slide, if we'll still want to connect you with her. But we'll keep it rolling. I'm just going to kick us off in this panel. And we've heard from Ginnette, Deirdre, and Tanya. And as I mentioned, we wanted to focus on leading through adversity. We're all in different positions where some may be managers, some may be individual contributors. So we're all coming from a different place. So get your notepads out, get your wine or your drink of preference, and keep those questions coming. They're going to be in the chat, and we'll hear from you guys. We're going to leave a lot of time for that, so you can get some Q&A in. So I'm going to start off with you, Tanya, with the magic question of, during this season, you know, this virtual season and not having a face-to-face environment, how do you build trust in teams virtually?
Yeah, so it's really interesting when you're building trust within a group in terms of facilitation, that it's really important to take your time with helping people ground themselves in the situation, whether it's in person or virtually. And a lot of the research that I do, besides, you know, understanding negotiation and leadership and equal pay, is understanding a concept called mirror neurons, which is super fascinating. Human beings are little creatures of mimicry, but there also is pretty clear science that the part of the way that we learn, and also like chimpanzees and some of our cousins, biological cousins, we learn from watching others and also from doing things in synchronicity with one another. And there are plenty of studies that show that when you have groups of people do things like march or sing or the thing that I do, because I tried having people sing on virtually and it's just a mess. Like by the way, anytime you ever see something where it's like a group of people singing on Zoom, like please know that didn't actually happen that way. Okay. Like they recorded it and they had a sound engineer fix that, because that does not happen in real life. But the thing that has been, I very consistently get from my clients feedback that is like, oh my gosh, people have never been this engaged in, a Zoom call or a video call. That was amazing. And so I let them know, I'm like, well, actually there's neuroscience behind it. So can I dive right, Jennifer, can I dive right into tactics? Is that okay?
Yeah, please. I want to hear about these little neurons going into my brain and how I use them.
Yeah, tips and tricks. So like the thing about building, so the science, the short and skinny on this, and somewhere on the internet, on my LinkedIn and on my website, and I can drop links later or whatever. I did a couple talks about mirror neurons and the research that I've done around this, and actual like experiments with human beings. But the trick is, the thing to keep in mind is you have to do everything at the same time. And it turns out it doesn't have to be anything super elaborate. So one thing that I have people do, and oftentimes, even though the client has me come and deliver a workshop, I'll have the executive or somebody, in management come and lead, taking 3 breaths together, and just taking that time to take 3 breaths together, or to have a moment of silence that's all, in real time, that dramatically changes the nature of the engagement. Because again, mirror neurons get created because you are doing something in synchronous fashion in real time, and everyone's doing that same thing together. So something that's very easy is the 3 breath. Let's just take 3 breaths together. The other thing that I actually learned from a Cisco executive that I do almost all the time is I have people drop in a number that tells us how they're showing up to that meeting, and they don't have to put any other information around that. And sometimes folks will ask it twice and they'll say, like, how are you doing personally and how are you doing professionally? And I just skip all of that and I say, drop into the chat box, like, how are you doing today? 1 is my cat died, and 10 is I just won the lottery and I'm quitting my job, right? Like, what does that look like? And so simple things like that, we're all doing the same thing at the same time, and they're very simple and small, but they are a way to replace a lot of the things that that was mentioned in breakout rooms or maybe somewhere else, that like there are all these organic instances of connection that we usually have that we don't have anymore. So the biggest challenge again in this virtual environment is how do we create meaningful interaction that helps us connect in with one another. And so, those are 2, take a breath together, tell everybody how you're doing, 1 to 10. And, it lets everyone kind of have a sense of where you're at, and you don't have to overshare or any of that. It can happen real fast. So anyhow, those are my 2 tactics. I know I dove right into it, Jennifer. I was like, let me give you the skinny, right?
No, I love that. I already dropped an 8 in the chat for me. So I was waiting for the chat to blow up on how everybody was doing. Wow, I'm a little mind blown right now. Like, you kind of just dropped the mic for me. So with that being said, I want to go over to you, Deirdre, because the synchronicity of being able to build that trust. How are you dealing with this whole pandemic? And you're in marketing, so I want to hear how you're staying creative during this period.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I think there's a couple of things that have been helpful on the creative sphere. One is, as a marketer, I got into marketing in the beginning because I love to do things, right? I love to write and take photographs and create videos. And the higher up you go and the longer you're in your career, the less you are able to actually get involved in mediums. And so what I've started doing is basically using volunteer work outside of my day job to go back to being sort of the hands-on marketer, right? So there's so many nonprofits that are struggling right now that need help. And I'm doing things I've maybe never done before, like creating lots of video content and things like that, just to sort of have a creative outlet. And also feel like I'm giving back in a time where it feels absolutely critical to do that. And I think there's a couple of things I've realized through this is, one, I've developed a whole new love language. So I know there's at least one person on my team on this call who might know that my new love language is sending TikTok videos. So I can pretty much find the perfect TikTok video for any situation. And so even little TikTok breaks and then sending them to my teams throughout the day, is just a spark of creativity. And then the other thing, for anybody who's on Office 365, Microsoft's analytics tools are really, really helpful in this sort of time soup, as John Oliver calls it, time that we're living in, where everything is blurring together, right? The times that we work, the days that we work. And they have something in there called focus time. And I set a goal for focus time, which for me is really important to either use that to read or garden or do something else that sort of re-energizes that creative spirit.
Wow. I feel like I spend all of my work life in some kind of Microsoft platform, and I didn't even know about that. I mean, either in Excel or Project or Word or PowerPoint or something, and I did not know that there was such thing as focus time, or I probably just ignored it.
Well, and that's also, just from a managerial perspective, that tool is really helpful. It tells me how much time I spend with certain people on my team. So if I realize like I disproportionately spend time with certain people, right, or on certain projects, so it actually that data and analytics has been sort of a crucial element in my management during this period.
That's an awesome tip. I love that. Thank you, Deirdre. Ginnette, during this survival of the fittest during the pandemic, do you have any tips on how to help individual teams or just individuals thrive instead of just survive during this period?
Yeah. First of all, I love the love language of TikToks. I might adopt that myself. Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely, it's not an understatement to say that we are really facing kind of unprecedented challenges. And, I think the key thing right now is our teams, our employees, even ourselves. I think everyone's really looking for psychological safety. And so I think that for me is kind of the first thing, right, is to make everybody kind of understand and kind of feel that level of authenticity. I think the first way to do that is by leaning into our values. Hopefully, as a leader in an organization, those values include, authentically caring, because I think more so than ever, our employees are looking to see that our words match our actions. So if we're in this together, then it needs to feel that we're in it together. So that care has got to be, very genuine and very authentic. I think at an organization level, if we can do something that makes a difference, and I appreciate every organization is going to have different parameters and every leader is going to have different kind of constraints, but if it is possible to do something to really make a difference to those with a heavy burden right now, then do it. So for example, within my own organization, we offered a very generous PTO allowance on top of the sort of the regular and the standard allowance for anyone that was disadvantaged because of sickness related to COVID, or who had an additional caregiver burden. And we offered flexible, modified schedules for those who needed it. Now, it went a really long way with our employees. Most of them didn't use it, but simply the gesture made all of the difference. And we had an even more engaged workforce as a result. And I would say the second thing is setting clear expectations. It probably doesn't necessarily, maybe isn't the first thing that comes to mind, but I think that people are actually craving that level of clarity. And I think the great thing about setting clear expectations, whether it's around deliverables, goals, milestones, is that it really does allow you to manage to results. And when you're managing to results, it gives people the space and the flexibility that they really, really desperately need in this climate to be able to deliver results however is going to work best for them. I think the key with that is trust and flexibility. So kind of something that I think both of the ladies have kind of mentioned already. I think this is not the time to micromanage our teams. And so by setting clear expectations and outlining the tools and the support available, it really does set everyone up for success. So creating time and space for check-ins is really important in that as a model. I think ultimately is crucial to staying connected to our employees. That goes hand in hand with building trust. And when we do have those connection points, how we engage is everything, right? So transparency, being really supportive, being positive, and creating a really good reciprocal feedback cycle. That's how we build trust builds loyalty. And I think that, in my opinion, is how employees and organizations are really going to continue to thrive.
That's, again, a mic drop right there, Ginnette. There's this one saying that I keep on my board that kind of resonates when you talk about expectations, and some people may know it because it's in the big book. It's called "Our serenity is directly proportional to our expectations." And so I tell people that all the time and they giggle at me, but I can't even agree with you more. Like during this season, I need somebody to tell me when they assign something to me, like, when do you need that? That's the only structure I have right now, because everything in the world is just so upside down. It's just the outside is just going and spinning, and then when you go into work, you're kind of craving that, a little bit of that structure. As human beings, I feel like we do.
Well, I mean, I think also because there is that little bit of insecurity with the market right now. I think people have insecurity about their jobs, right? And so this really kind of speaks to that, right? Is knowing that you're exactly what's expected and having that set in stone and concrete, that you're really delivering to that, gives everyone peace of mind.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more. All right. So with a manager role and everything going on in our personal life, Deirdre, what is it that you do that with the stress going on, and how do you take care of yourself? How is self-care practice in your life to be a successful manager and leader during this period? Because you got to give it out to so many people as a manager. What is it that you're doing for yourself, Deirdre?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think there's, a couple of things. If one thing the pandemic has taught me was to be more transparent with my team about my own self-care, right? So for example, I'll now share with 100 of my closest friends, but every Friday afternoon I go to therapy. And that's something when I was in the office, I would maybe tell a couple of people that I knew, were sort of respectful of mental health. But now I use it as an opportunity to basically be that, sort of role model for the team that, I may look like I have my shit together most days, but if I didn't have those Friday sessions, the team would get a different version of me on Mondays, right? And so that's one of the things that I think is really important, and really encouraging the team to be themselves and to take care of themselves. And then some small things. I've made one of probably the biggest habitual changes during this time that's been extremely beneficial. So like many of you on the call, I'm sure I was a screen watcher before bed. Right. And I realized during this time, I'm on the screen all day. And then I get into bed, I'm on the screen again. And I'm just like, I can't do it anymore at night. So I'm really trying to have true digital downtime. And it's actually made a noticeable difference in my sleeping pattern, and just sort of how I feel in general. And then the third thing is allowing myself to explore new ways of practicing self-care. So I always thought like I was an indoor kid, right? I like playing video games and VR and things like that. And I realized during this time that I actually really need to be in touch with the environment. And so I've started gardening, and I just get out there a little bit every day and be outside. And I think all of these things have really helped me be a more successful leader by practicing self-care and then, encouraging my team to do the same.
I love that. I think, so I have a wife and a 13-year-old, and before the pandemic, I was always at work, and, I worked long hours, and I'd come home and I could never keep a garden alive. Like I just couldn't do it. And so what's funny, during COVID, my 13-year-old son, I have like so much stuff in my garden. I don't know if you can see back there, but I actually have plants alive. But he told me just like a few months ago, he's like, Mom, I didn't even know that you knew how to garden. I said, neither did I. Like I had no clue. I'm learning things about myself too. So I love that, like the exploring part of ourselves. Like I think before this, I think we got so stuck in our normal life, and we didn't even know things about ourselves that we were good at,
Yeah. And I'll just, I'll add one more thing on that too, Jennifer, because I think, especially for the people who study like diversity, equity, and inclusion, just by the nature of this call, I'm sure it's many of you on here that are passionate about this. There's all this research that shows that people are really stressed when they have to cover at work, which is, hiding a piece of themselves, hiding a part of who they are. And that's even that sort of notion that they have to do is even higher in diverse populations, right? And study after study shows that there's long-term negative impact on doing that every day. Well, I very quickly realized it's even harder to hide who you are or your life in this situation. Right? If I wasn't out at work, but somebody saw some chick walking past me 5 times a day, they might start to think, right? And so I just, whether it's the team showing up in workout clothes or whatever those are, I've tried to really set those guidelines that be who you are. We do not have the time or the energy to try to hide the layers of yourself. Bring that whole self to work. And, I'll do the same. I'll always wear my hat.
That's super awesome. I think this season of authenticity has been fairly new and refreshing. So Tanya, I definitely want to hear like some more from you, because I'm still mind blown on mirror neurons. I'm going to try to get us to all sing like together, all 100 of us. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, you could try, but ooh,
that would be horrible. So virtually, we're in this room of 100. Would you give some tips on how you would virtually reading the room to ensure your message is connecting in a virtual environment? And by the way, I love your cat.
Yeah, sorry about that. My murder beast upstaging all of us. Yeah, I mean, so there are a lot of, and I've done trainings for, 20 people, and tomorrow I'm going to be doing training for 300 people, and it's actually global. So that's going to be really interesting. You can't obviously look at all of the faces all the time, particularly if you're the speaker, you're running the slides. So, but I do a lot of interaction with the chat. So I think that once you get people to be comfortable in using the chat, that can be really helpful. And I also think too, that a lot of this virtual environment, I think of it as sort of the 70 to 80% solution, right? It would be better if we were in person. Like I am a huge theater geek. I have spent almost the entirety of my life on a stage. So there are definitely things that I'm picking up on when I'm on a stage, people's body language and things like that you just have a muted version of that when you're online. I do also do, this is a little bit more technical than I think you wanted me to go on this, but I do a lot of pre and post surveying. So they're very short. And I get people to, and there's actually, okay, I'm going down a nerdy rabbit hole here, but Jennifer, just stop, just mute me if I go too far. Okay, how about that?
No, I might just listen forever because I'm super nerdy. So I love it. I love it. Keep
Oh,
going.
good. Oh, thank you, Chrissy, too, for Chrissy and Sarah and oh, Holly. Hello, Holly. I love she's nerdier than I am. She should be talking. I love Holly.
No mute button. No mute button.
No mute button. So, and I think too, you don't, even if you're leading a team or if you're helping laterally lead a team, I think some of these tactics are still useful. So people, when they're learning new things, their recall is a lot better when you break it up with polling. A lot of my method actually has people take a categorization test. So maybe it's time management, or what's your functional job joy, or what's your negotiation style. Because when people do that, it's like why BuzzFeed is so successful, right? Like people love seeing themselves, and it's in our nature to, and actually I'm giving a DEI and B talk tomorrow, and we're talking about unconscious bias. And like, that's how our brains are kind of wired, unfortunately, or fortunately. I mean, so, but what the point is that when you allow people to opt in to a categorization system that's non-judgmental, right? You're just trying to figure out kind of where I am on a scale or something like that, then that really kind of amps up the curiosity factor, because now they want to know, oh, what are you, right? And you have a different way of kind of exchanging information with one another, and you're learning about that other person. And I think I mentioned this before, the key kind of the key aspect of virtual working and interaction is you have to be way more explicit about things. So actually finding non-judgmental categorization systems that help you learn more about others, whether it's personality system or whatever, like that is a way of really sending out information that you might have organically picked up on if you were co-located somewhere. And I have no idea what your original question was, Jennifer, I'm sorry. But I think, reading the room. So, the way that you have to read the room, some of it is over video. And I think when you want to help, and this is like less detecting on others, but if you want to help your team, being more pronounced in the nonverbals and how you engage with the video camera can be really helpful for your teammates, so that they know whether stuff is landing or not. I will also say that when I see people nodding and thumbs up and whatever, like emoting, that's very encouraging, whether we're virtually situated or if I'm on a stage. But the other thing, examples of non-judgmental categorizations. Yes, so like I have a system where I help people learn about their time management styles, right? So you've got reactive, proactive, zone-based, or routine. And the point of that system is you figure out where you kind of start on that system, right? But the system is based on function, and there's no judgment attached to like where you end up, right? Because in fact, for the systems that I teach anyhow, like it's an entry point into understanding a concept. And so actually mastering all of the categories or figuring out what's my authentic version of that category is a way to become a better teammate and a better leader. So that's what I mean by non-judgmental. But I think, you definitely want to keep an eye on the video, but you also want to really encourage people to open up over chat. And I think the other thing that's not an answer to your question, Jennifer, but really important for everybody on this call, particularly folks in tech, tend to trend more introverted than extroverted, but that could be a wild stereotype. But I will say that there has been a great equalization in teaching virtually, because people that are more willing to use the chat tend to be a little bit less vocal when it's in person, right? So you get a whole different group of people responding to what you're talking about, because it's just easier for them, right? And it's it kind of equalizes things in an interesting way. So I feel like I kind of went down a rabbit hole and went a little roundabout, but
no, I think the chat is telling us that they're so on beat with what you have to provide to us. Because I think one of the things that I listen to I go to a lot of different like women's leadership topics, and at some point I hear the same things over and over again, right? Like, and not to defer the conversation, but like for me, like for you to provide those. I think that's what we're all craving for, like the tangible things. And I think all the panelists have, like, you've all done like such an amazing job. I have my like scratch notes here of like everything I'm gonna do after here. So I think it's important, like right now, that we're craving, you know, at first when this virtual experience came on, you know, we were kind of going like high level on how we can stay engaged. And I think now everybody's like, okay, it's 7 months. I need some serious, like tangible, like tell me tangibly, like, how am I going to survive right now? And so I do want to say something exciting for everyone. Erika is on, so I'm going to pass the baton to Erika to introduce yourself, Erika, before we jump into questions. Tell us a little bit about you.
Apologies, everybody, for being late. I hurt my back today.
Oh my gosh, are you okay?
I'm doing okay. It's called
on a 1 to 10. You're more like a 5, or?
Listen, I'm a warrior, so I'm back at 10. I'm just gonna keep going. So thank you all. Apologies for being late. Thank you all for such an engaging conversation. My name is Erika Jefferson. I am the president and founder of Black Women in Science and Engineering, also known as BWISE. Launched this organization with 8 people in Houston 6 years ago. And, you know, 6 years later now, we have probably about 1,600 folks around the world in 6 chapters. And it's really a testament to the need of this particular demographic to have support. So I am just constantly amazed at the incredible women that cross my path and that I'm able to engage with and support. And it's just been incredible. So whenever I hear folks, you know, say we can't find talent, or there's a lack of diversity, or there's a lack of women in these high-tech fields, I'm like, I don't know who you're talking to. I don't know where you're going, because I see a lot of talent. So it's just been incredible just to do this. And I call myself an accidental entrepreneur. I had no plans to become an entrepreneur. My goal was to work for someone or several someones for several years and get my gold watch and ride off into the sunset and retire. And just things turned another way. So it's been an incredible 6 years of learning and growing. And I guess if I had to look back over my career, I guess I've always been preparing for this. So it's been great, phenomenal. So I think I have some questions. Am I supposed to focus on my topics?
No, so I'll go ahead and ask you one question, because like
Sure.
what you're talking about right now kind of leads into it. You know, you started your company 6 years ago, BWISE. So just for everybody who's out there, BWISE, go look it up, because BWISE, Erika's freaking awesome.
Oh, thank you.
So what have you found with this change that you feel like you would maintain as a leader, like with this whole, you know, virtual space and your company, you know, being I'm going to say a badass entrepreneur? What are you going to keep from this to your future to kind of keep growing y'all's business and inspiring the youth to go into engineering and creating like a diverse workforce?
I would say for me, what this period is just sharpened my focus. You know, a lot of things have fallen away that just weren't important. You know, being able to focus on things that are really important, that really add value to my life and my work, into the amount of my members as well. And so things that, you know, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I would have freaked out about, like, oh my God, this is terrible. I'm like, okay, in the grand scheme of things, right? I've got my health, I've got a nickel or two in the bank, a roof over my head, and, you know, my friends are, knock on wood, still healthy. Family and friends are still healthy. And so for me, it's really about being real clear on goals and setting boundaries for what I expect out of my career and the folks that are in my network. So that has really sharpened things. I can't, as an engineer, say that I was frivolous, because I don't know if that's part of our nature, but I certainly have become much more focused on the things that are really, really important. There's so much going on, you just can't freak out over everything. You know, you'd be freaking out all day long. So.
Yeah. And we're, as engineers, we're natural like fixers. you know?
Yes.
Like, it fix everything.
Yes. I heard a lot of folks talk about gardening, and, you know, for folks who have not started gardening, I highly recommend it. It is probably a lifesaver for me, and that, you know, I need to fix something. I need to create something and do something. And, you know, the garden, you know, I think the great equalizer. So, you know, it will humble you if you think you're really smart and really talented, and you know, go out there and do something, and you come back out the next day and it's dead. And you're like, I did everything. I did everything. I watered you. Why did you not live? So it's been a really great, for me, learning experience. So I highly recommend gardening. And this is from someone who is from the North, has very little experience in gardening and such things, but it's been really great. Every plant ever. Yeah, I've probably killed, thousands of dollars worth of plants at this point.
Oh yeah. I got a few living, but I didn't talk about the dead ones back there, but we won't go there.
Right. It's a learning process. It's a learning process.
Yes, it is. What do you find right now trying to keep people engaged and when leading? Like, do you have anything that you've learned through this season and trying to keep people, you know, especially through your organization, continuously engaged and fired up when things around them are like falling apart? Right.
One thing that, you know, we talk about a lot is being strategic. I mean, anyone who kind of remembers 2008 when the economy kind of went south, and how much innovation came out of that. Airbnb and Uber and Lyft all came out of that time, and telling folks, listen, this is going to pass. We don't know when it's going to be, but this is going to pass, and there's going to be incredible innovation and opportunities for folks who, we're not saying work 24 hours in your pajamas all day long, but I think there's opportunity for folks who are like, you know what, there's something good that's going to come out of that, and you know, I'm going to use my knowledge and my experience and put something together. So I'm telling folks, you know, be strategic, you know, be looking at, you know, the bigger picture out of all of this, and that, you know, we're not going to forever be struggling with this. And what can you do with what you've already, you know, worked in and seen that can be, you know, life-changing or revolutionary or innovative. So focus on those things, you know, so when we get past this, you know, you're on the cover of Forbes or whatever your goals are.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm gonna ask Ginnette another question as well. Ginnette, during this season, have you seen any shifts in your female workforce, like taking on more roles at home, or do you see a balanced approach? Like, in your workforce and in general, I get mixed signals, like that through this pandemic, that it's becoming a more balanced approach, like male and female are taking on more of a home role. But are you seeing more women fatigued in your specific environment, and what tips would you give to them, Ginnette?
Yeah. It's funny, I sit on the council for the American Staffing Association, and this was a very big topic at an event that we ran recently. And I think that when men were surveyed versus women, the actual responses that came back were quite dramatically different to the same question. And so, you know, looking internally at my own organization, but also tapping into external networks, I would say that it does seem that the burden of responsibility still falls primarily to women. I'm sure that's not exclusively the case, but it is often the case. I think predictably, it seems that, you know, it's just the natural default that the responsibility for some of these extra tasks, you know, the homeschooling the children, cooking twice as many meals, the impossible task of trying to keep the house tidy, that the burden of that responsibility sits with the female in the house. And you know, I'm often hearing people referring to their husbands as kind of helping out, you know, and you know, it definitely kind of perpetuates that whole mental load, the physical load, the emotional load. And so it's, you know, perhaps it's unsurprising that that's, you know, the sort of case right now, but it's definitely, I think, a little disappointing. And so then I think as leaders, there's things that we can do to be cognizant and really thoughtful around when, you know, we're kind of looking at managing our workforce. For me, a kind of a personal example, sitting on quite a few board meetings, they're always epically long affairs. And, you know, there's quite a few of my male counterparts that are very lucky to have wives that, you know, are kind of staying home and, you know, right around lunchtime as we're working through, they'll get the nice gourmet lunch brought in by their wives. There's no sign of the kids because they're all being, you know, homeschooled in a different room and not interrupting the meeting. Meanwhile, my son's made, you know, 100 different appearances, and the same for some of the other women. And, you know, when we get that kind of 10-minute comfort break, we're running to make our kids lunch. We're trying to see where they are with their schoolwork. We're trying to squeeze in a bathroom break. There's no time to eat, you know, so it's a very, very dramatically different situation. And so I think that during this time, it's really important as leaders that we just take an extra second to think about the different circumstances of our teams. Like, people are shouldering extra burdens right now, and just because that's not the case for you, just giving an extra second of kind of thought. You know, in that scenario, I picked the phone up to my boss the next day and said, hey, there's me and 3 other mothers, and that doesn't really work for us. And, you know, he was incredibly, you know, gracious about it. And now when we have virtual board meetings, we, you know, you make sure to bake in that extra time for us to be able to feed our kids and make sure that they haven't burnt the house down. So those are, I think, are just really practical things. But I think for me, in short, we just have to have more open conversations around this. You know, it might be a little controversial to say, but I think, you know, for some husbands and fathers out there, it's just really important to know that, you know, you're not helping us out. It's your responsibility too. And I think just kind of having those conversations in the workplace to just really understand what that extra burden looks like and being thoughtful about it goes a very, very long way in today's climate.
Yeah, I think so for me, you know, I have a 13-year-old and he almost did burn down the house in a meeting. He's like, I like to tell him he's one of the smartest, dumbest kids I know, because he put a frozen soda can in the microwave. Oh my gosh, like, come on, kid. So that happened during a meeting. And one thing I did find during this season that I, like you're saying, speaking up, I feel like I can speak up now. Like, whereas before, like, I was scared, like in the workplace, that, you know, I was competing with men and I was at a very competitive level. So if I were to, you know, share like, oh, well, I can't stay, then that would just take me a tier below. But now I don't, during this period, I'm like, if they're screaming in the background, I'm not paying, I'm getting up. I'm like, I'm going, you know? So I'm hopeful that this will kind of create something for us as, you know, and I don't want to leave the men out, because I do know some single men out there that are raising kids too. But for the women on this call that are raising kiddos and stuff, that are going through that burden, I was just on a call today, and this amazing engineer, I just gave her the space. 2 kids were screaming, and I was like, I think that's a beautiful sound. Do not mute your button right now, whatever you do. And she's like, are you sure? I'm like, no, this is a safe space. And so I think it's important for us to all say, if you're in a call and there's screaming kids in the background, make sure that the other person on that call doesn't feel like they have to no longer have a voice. Like, they can unmute, they can share, and just make sure that they feel invited, and not, because it's a stressful period, and everybody's, as we mentioned, you know, everybody's a little scared about work security and stuff. So that's awesome. Well, I am going to turn it over to the audience to give like a good amount of time for questions, because I feel like I've like picked at y'all's brains and opened up so much questions for myself and the audience. We've learned so much. I have my little note here, but so Heather from AWT, Austin Women in Tech, is going to be taking your questions in the chat for everyone out there and directing those questions towards the panelists. So if you guys have any questions at all, we're going to give you probably, I want to say 20-30 minutes to answer questions, which is a great amount of time. So I'm going to zipper up my mouth and leave it to the audience to be able to ask directly what they want to the panelists. So
yeah, well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yes, if you do not know me, I'm Heather Chemfeller. I'm the current membership director for Awesome Women in Technology. I'm actually passing the torch to Taryn Wise on here, who I'll let her introduce herself in a little bit. I'm serving in the president-elect role. So when Emmy rolls off, I will be taking over as president for AWT. But while you guys, while y'all are putting your questions in the chat, I will ask, Deirdre, Erika, Ginnette, Tanya, what are some apps that you're using right now that we could be taking advantage of, either for productivity or, like you said, the nighttime? I saw some of that in the chat for your phones to get away from the screens. Is there anything you've been doing? Erika, I'll let you go first, that maybe tips or tricks or apps that you're using that you're like must-haves while people start putting questions in the chat.
Is this for personal or for business?
Either one, whatever you're using that we need to know about.
So one I have sort of figured out, I think it's operator error, but it's been great for me, is Zapier. And Zapier is an automation tool. And I don't know what they haven't figured out how to automate. I just wish that I had the attention span to sit down and automate more things. But, for those of you who are small business owners, whether you have staff or you're still doing it all yourself, it's a great way for me. I've, just in the limited use I've gotten out of it, to take away some of that repetitive work. Some things can go to virtual assistants or interns or things like that, but some things are so simple. It's a great use for that. So Zapier, Zapier, I think they have a free trial or something like that, but for me, that's the greatest app that I've found so far.
Awesome. And I already see the chat blowing up with some people's there. So Ginnette, what about you?
For me, my go-to right now is Calm. And I think that just for me is, just kind of a lifesaver. I use it at the nighttime to, for meditation, and that's kind of that's my daily go-to.
Tanya, what about you?
I'm muted. Hello. I am going to suggest something that's on the other end. I actually use a paper notebook. This is something I actually designed. And not to be self-serving, but they will be up for sale in the next week on my website, cultivatedtools.com. But, I really have to do a lot of stuff that's like steady work. And so, and I'll just show, and you don't have to use this notebook to do it, but basically there's a time tracker here, and it's 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and it's in 15-minute blocks. And I actually designed this, which was on Excel originally, to help me manage my brain fog and other chronic illness that I was managing 5 years ago when I got really sick. And I would just, every week I'd print out 5 copies. And eventually I was like, you know what, I'm gonna annoyed at printing it out. So I bought a binding machine because I'm that kind of nerd. So I just printed it all out and made myself a little notebook, because a lot of the notebooks that are out there too, there's like too much stuff. So my version's more stripped down. And then it kind of took off. And those items, by the way, 25% of the profits go to the Safe Alliance here in Austin. I'm a survivor of domestic violence, so that is a cause that's really close to my heart, especially now during the pandemic. So I think there are some really awesome apps that help automate things, but I think going the other way is not bad either. I actually also bought a dial clock because I noticed if I had a dial clock that it helps me do better at being more productive. For some reason, digital clocks don't move time the same way. And one of my friends who's a human computer interaction or human factors expert, she was like, yeah, that's by design. Like they designed the dial clock for a reason. It does actually help with a sort of productivity. So these days it really is paper and having a sense of completion. Because every time I finish, and I'm very much about like, they minimum viable product. Well, I'm all about like minimum viable data, right? Like I can't do like food journals or any of that stuff, but you can figure out the direction of the data. So for me, it's filling in these little blocks with pink highlighter because it means I stayed on task.
Yep.
But now I'm such a like I call it being gold star motivated, right? And I'm like, I just need to fill the whole thing in with hot pink, So sorry, that's a little bit of a left turn from what y'all were asking.
No, well, I appreciate and thank you for sharing the vulnerability there too. But I agree, we're having so much screen time. Whip out a paper and pen. And I saw some people in the chat were even saying that. I mean, gratitude journals and all of that stuff. Like the paper and pen goes a long way. So thank you for sharing. Deirdre, what about you? What are some go-to apps or tricks that we need to know about?
Yeah, so I think we've been having a lot of fun with some of the digital whiteboarding tools like Mural. It actually has been a way for us to get out of our routine of just like talking to each other and being a little bit more creative, and actually like the digital tactileness of sticky notes together, I think has been really good. And then I want to give a shout out to a brand new app. It's still in beta mode. Called Quimby. It's actually started by 2 Austin women in tech. That is helpful to make basically improve on your employees' mental well-being during the day. So it reminds them to take breaks and take a walk and things like that. And so that's something that as it comes out of beta, I'm really excited to explore.
Awesome. Yeah, put all these in chat. And if y'all didn't know, you can save this chat. And obviously there is some people, we're all just chatting in here too. Literally, it's a chat. But if you go to the bottom right at the bottom of the chat where you would type, you can do save chat at the end. So if you wanted to remember what some of these apps were or articles, or like I know there were some quizzes and things sent out, you're able to save that chat. So definitely do that there. But Tanya, I have a question for you that came in. How do you win skeptics over to try those mirror neuron exercise and activities? Someone mentioned there, they lead a team of men who looks at her like an alien if she suggests they take 3 breaths together. How can we win them over by doing that 1 to 10 scale in the next team meetings, or really help try to get over those skeptics?
Yeah, well, because it's so a couple of things. I dropped in I saw that question. I dropped in a Scientific American article, which has some of the research there. And also too, someone else asked a very similar question previously. So like recently, one of my clients is a very large pharmaceutical trade association. So I had to train 20 people who are all executives from very large global companies. And they were really resistant to some of the things that I tend to do when I'm doing trainings. I was helping them prep for a multi-billion-dollar negotiation. And at first, the client was like, you want us to do what now, when, with the what? And I was like, no, I'll be able to win them over. So there's 2 things. One is if you are the facilitator, or if you are in that role consistently, like before the big meeting, you want to try to do the one-on-ones with individuals, especially if you have a sense that they might be resistant. They're resistant because they don't trust the situation because it's so radically different and new for them. So doing a one-on-one conversation and keeping it short too, like a 15-minute conversation, can be a way of kind of figuring out what the real point of resistance might be, and also help build trust that then leads to getting them to do things with you online together. The other thing too is that, like I mentioned before, like you know, I spend a lot of time working with military families and in counterintelligence and defense. So usually when I present stuff, especially if I know it's going to be a highly male, white, sort of a certain type, I tend to hit them with what the military does. So I don't talk about like, it's not Pilates breathing, which like in some groups you have to say, hey, it's like, you know, Kalapati breathing or Pilates breathing, and people really get into that. But with highly male kind of very skeptical populations, I just hit them with so we're going to do something that Navy SEALs do. It's called diaphragmatic breathing. Also, scuba divers do this as well, because what we're doing is we are bringing more oxygen into your body. And that makes for better decision making. And then I always talk about, this is of strategic value. And I'm going to talk in stereotypes here for a second, but with the type of populations that folks have been mentioning in the chat, you want to sell them on the science of it and the strategic value of it. I also practice martial arts, so if you want to throw that in there too, sometimes I get some pay attention, but you know, deep diaphragmatic breathing is useful in these environments that are more sort of hyper masculine, I guess you could say. And so I think when you associate it with something that feels a little bit closer to them or feels aspirational to them, that makes it a little bit easier for them to be a part of it. But yeah, divide and conquer, my friends, my sisters, like just get them to tell you, you know, make that connection, and then also just let them know this is what soldiers do. So this is not some sort of like fluffy thing. Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah. Well, and a question we've gotten on a lot of our AWT virtual events that we've had is, how do you handle the distractions, right? So Deirdre, I'll ask you, I thought that was funny how you were saying when you can't really cover at work when your wife walks behind you, right? So I think it's an amazing way, but I do think people hide behind the screen a lot of the times too these days. But you know, as much as we love our kids and our partners and our dogs, like I said, I just adopted a dog and I kept apologizing for him. And people were like, stop apologizing for him. It's fine. Keep it on. But how do you actually mitigate and handle that when you're on an important client meeting or a call, or really apologize for that, but you're not apologizing for your kid? You know what I mean? So how do you handle that?
Yeah, so I don't have kids, so I can't answer that, but in particular, so, but I think it's, you know, as much as I can, I try to plan and coordinate with my wife / coworker right now. She's also in tech and an engineer, so we have battling conference calls quite a bit. And so, you know, we will try to sort of share schedules or go outside. One of us will take a call, although it's freezing now, and so I don't know how that's gonna work. But as much as we can, like, openly communicate about sort of the big meetings and the stuff that like cannot be disrupted. And honestly, I'm kind of at a point too where if it happens, I'm not gonna beat myself up for it, right? Like, I think there's so many things out of our control that, you know, I try the best I can, and if something happens, something happens. And, you know, I think the other thing is just, you know, sort of on a related note, is there's so much we can't plan for too. I think, you know, some of my fellow panelists know, I mean, in the past 6 weeks, I've had 4 members of my family hospitalized, right? And so we are just taking it day by day. And there are so many things that are more important than a Zoom call getting interrupted right now, right? I mean, people's health, whether it's like the physical health or mental health, all of these things are much more important. So just keeping that in sort of the top of my front of mind, I think is critical right now.
Agreed. Intention has been something we were talking about in our chat roulette earlier, that's what the pandemic has really taught us, right? Is what is the intention of things? What are the prioritizations of things? But I mean, what about you, Ginnette? When you were talking about it, you know, your kids are a priority, but your business is a priority. So how have you been handling the similar type of questions about balancing that workday?
I mean, honestly, I think that for me, I've just, you know, really tried to give myself the same grace that I give my team. You know, I really manage the team to results, and I manage myself to results. So for me, being very intentional around my priorities, I'm a planner. So, you know, on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, setting kind of goals around what I want to get achieved is really crucial. And then how I go about it, you know, I elongate my day, you know, so I start work at 6 o'clock and maybe I'll finish up around 7, 8 at night. But the reason that I do that is because I want to take an hour in the day and go do some exercise. And maybe I want to go and spend another hour at some point, you know, getting a manicure or calling a friend. And so I would rather kind of have a longer day that allows me to have mental breaks, or just spend some time with my son, pick him up from school early, go to the park. But you know, for me, it all starts with kind of knowing what it is that I want to achieve, and kind of I'm really working around to that, and you know, kind of ripping up the rule book a little bit, and you know, not being a minute counter, being a kind of a results oriented person.
I agree. And I think a lot of the things I'm hearing from my female friends is, I don't think our bodies were truly made to work 9 to 5, sitting down at a desk. And I'm the same way. I'm a morning person. So I love that I'm able to use my most productive hours a little bit better because I'm not stuck in the car doing that or whatnot. And so I agree. Like, that's an amazing way to do that. But Erika, I'll ask you this question. Constance, you put this in here, and I think that was a great question. But you, especially with your business that you built, have you found that, you know, as a woman of color leading through adversity is a bit tougher? And any advice for not only the allies on here, but people who are going through that?
You know, honestly, I think I had more problems convincing folks of the value of what we provide prior to, well, maybe not COVID, because I think there was a period when people were like, we've got to save all the money we can't spend money on D&I. But certainly after George Floyd's murder, you know, a lot more interest in what we do. And what I've found is, you know, there's some difficult conversations that need to be had before you start doing the work to kind of unpack a lot of things. And since I'm not a HR person, a D&I person, I don't know how this would have played if I were. But, you know, one thing I tell you, I was like, I'm not that. I'm an engineer. My background is in operations. And so I'm telling you what is happening out there, not, you know, what is in books and articles and things like that. I'm telling you, you know, things that are going to impact your business, because, you know, we've got partners around the globe, and this is what's happening. Before this, there was a shortage of tech talent to do, you know, really the most abstract, kind of complex type work. And so this has just hastened this. So, you know, the thing I talk about is you've got to find talent from everywhere. You can't just be limited, you know, from our college chums and things like that. And so I look at it from that perspective, and really having a story of why this is important. So I probably had less adversity during this time than I had before, because I think prior to this, people thought, you know, we can find them, we'll just keep looking. And I think, you know, a lot of folks have hit a roadblock, especially in the life sciences, right? It's like all hands on deck, you know, for pharmaceutical companies and related companies during COVID. So I think that has, you know, kind of made things a little bit easier, but it's, you know, these are still difficult conversations that we're having. One of our largest partners, we did an event for Juneteenth. And literally I said, you know, this is probably the first time you leaders have ever been told to be quiet, keep your mouth shut and listen, right? You open your ears and shut your mouth. And I'm sure if men wore pearls, there would be clutching of the pearls. I'm sure they had never been told to be quiet before. But, you know, I think that's important. That's important. So
I think that's amazing. Thank you for sharing, and I appreciate all of you. I do know one of the other questions, we'll end on this one and then we'll get into some other things, and we'll actually allow people to stick around and chat with the panelists and NXP and Amazon here. But I literally had to go grab my blue light glasses because I have the ring light here, and I was like, man, my eyes are feeling it at the end of the day. But one thing that also I feel like has been hurting more than normal is my head. And I'm like, how do you increase your attention span to retain all of this. And I literally saw that same thing in the chat. So the question was, how can you increase your attention span so you can retain most of all the meetings in the day? Because a lot of us are having more meetings than normal. So whoever wants to take that, or if you all want to chime in, let's hear it.
I mean, I think it's impossible to retain everything if you're in a constant flow of meetings. So I personally think it's about being really protective of your time. So if you're scheduling a meeting, you know, what is the intention behind it? Does it need to be an hour-long meeting? Can it be done in half an hour? Can you send the preps in advance? You know, there's a lot that can be done from an efficiency point of view, and the same thing when people are inviting you to meetings. And there's nothing more soul destroying for me than looking at my calendar and seeing meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. I know that's not going to be a good day, you know, so we need to be in control and proactive about what our calendars look like, not the other way around. I know that sounds a little idealistic, right? And there's sometimes that can't happen, but I think a lot of the time, you know, we can kind of avoid that because, you know, you can't switch lanes and go to that many meetings and really expect to retain.
I think one tip that I have too that's worked really well for me is taking one-on-ones with key members of my team and using them as walking one-on-ones. Just getting away and not, I mean, we don't have to see, like, we see each other all day in 1,000 other meetings, but when it's that one-on-one time, just getting out and moving, it helps keep me focused, and I can really, really listen to them so that I'm not getting distracted by other things. That has been, you know, something that I think I will continue to do even back in the office because it's been really helpful.
I agree. Yeah. I already told my boss, I said, if I do return to office, can I do that? Can I just go outside and go on a walk? Because I'm paying more attention when I'm on the phone with someone and I have Outlook out or my iWatch is going or whatnot. So agreed.
I think for, go ahead.
No, you go, I'll go after you.
I was going to say, for me, I think setting and maintaining boundaries and expectations. For me, you know, it's a constant will you, can you, have you, you know, all day long, you know, please help me. And, you know, there's only 24 hours in a day for each of us. And you just simply can't be effective, you know, and studies have shown multitasking is not productive. And so a little bit here, a little bit here. And so what I found is there's some things that, you know, maybe I want to do, want to help, want to, you know, collaborate. And I just have to say no, right? No is a complete sentence, and just, you know, hand it off to someone, refer someone else, change the time, because I just know this is not going to stop. It's not going to slow down. And so I have to protect my mental well-being and be able to say, yes, I can do this, or I can do it at this time, or I can do half of that now. And I think that's key, especially when we're home. I think people are working longer hours. And so the time doesn't stop. I'm regularly getting emails on Saturday and Sunday now. It used to be an emergency or urgent thing, but now this is commonplace, emails on Saturday and Sunday. And I finally had to say, I can't, you know, there's no stop, there's no turn off. So for me, setting those boundaries is really important.
A good cognitive hack, I think I mentioned this earlier, but I'll mention it again, to help if you have like the 10,000 foot stare because you've been on Zoom all day long, is to walk through a doorway. That is a transition that people use in cinematography, but it also supposedly helps reset your short-term memory. So literally between meetings, if you get up and walk around your dwelling, walk through a door, what I do, I also, like many on this call, do a lot of gardening. So between meetings, I'll actually get up and go check on a garden bed. So that caused me to walk out of my house and then come back in. So the transitions, physical transitions like that through a doorway or changing a room or even just getting up and walking from one side of the house to the other can help reset your memory. So, and I'll give you a kind of a oddball proof point. Have you ever, and this is not like a senior moment, I'm only 41, so there's no way that that's what's going on here, but I know a lot of folks have had this, like you start from one part of your dwelling and then you're like, where are my keys? And then you walk to the other part of your dwelling and you walk through two doorways. And then you get to that other place and you're like, wait, why am I here? And the reason why you forgot is because the doorway is we've been socialized and it's been cognitively primed that that's a transition. And so we forget because your brain's dumping information and it resets your short-term memory. The other thing I do for meeting management, particularly with clients, because for me, I am the more time I spend on the phone or on a Zoom call with them, the marginal value of the dollar they're paying me depreciates. So I try, and also I work with a lot of executives. They don't have more than about 15 or 20 minutes to meet with me. So before every call, I think, what are the 3 things I need from the person I'm meeting with? And I tend to send that as an email a day before, or usually a couple hours before the meeting. And then I also think, what do I need to have done as a result of this meeting, right? So who do I owe what to echo what Ginnette's been saying about managing for results and really managing for like project-driven outcomes. And I try to keep it up to 3, again, with the kind of cognitively nimble kind of framework, 3 people, it's easy to remember 3 things, 1 to 3 things. So, again, coming into a meeting, what are the 3 things I need from the people that are in the meeting? And then what are the 3 things I need to get back to folks to reset the memory? The other thing too, is that the human, and again, this is behavioral science and cognitive science, you should not be meeting for more than 45 minutes. The brain just stops working for most people after 45 minutes. So, just try to keep that in mind as you're scheduling. And even if you have to do a long meeting, to have it broken up every 45 to 50 minutes with like a 10-minute break for bio breaks or, whatever people have to do. But hopefully that helps.
Well, I'm glad people have stuck with us for more than 45 minutes here. So I know that this counts as screen time too. So any last words from the speakers? Anything you guys didn't get to share that you wanted to chime in with?
I mean, I'll just say thank you to AWT, to NXP, to Amazon for having us. Honestly, it's amazing to see all of these women come together, and very inspiring conversation, both with my fellow panelists and on the chat. So thank you, and be kind to yourself. We're all in this together. There's a lot going on. I think the next few weeks are going to be stressful for a lot of reasons for a lot of people. So hang in there. And honestly, I'm going to leave tonight feeling super inspired and sort of uplifted by just seeing all of these awesome women on this call. So thank you. I think I needed this more than probably I gave to any of you. So thank you very much.
I agree. And I was telling someone the other day what I most missed about in person is that I gain energy from being around other people, and especially in women supporting women organizations. And Austin Women in Technology has changed my life, y'all. And that's why I love this organization. And so when Jessica, who you'll see again in a few minutes from NXP, was saying, we'd love to partner together, we're having this conversation with Amazon. And I was just so happy for that partnership, because that's exactly what we wanted to do. We want people to show up tonight and invest in themselves to become better people, better humans for themselves and for their teams. And so that's why we have these events. So super, super excited. If you want to be more, Awesome Women in Technology, we've actually had 14 events during the pandemic. So we do 2 events every single month, and we actually had 3 here in October. So we do 1 during the lunchtime, if that's better for you. We do 1 in the evenings. But to be a part of Awesome Women in Technology, I'll tell you a little bit about it. It's $60 for the year, right? That admission gets you into these events for free. Again, we have 2 every single month. And the community. We have a Slack channel where all 450 of our members are constantly praising each other. Our channels will look things like this, right? You should download this app. Here's this tip. Congrats on Nicole on her promotion, or I'm hiring for this. There's job postings, there's community outreach, there's philanthropic events. So our Slack community is such a huge part of this networking and keeping in touch. So if you're interested in becoming an AWT member, like I mentioned, Taryn Wise, if it's on here, if you want to unmute and say hi, Taryn.
Hello, everyone.
Hi. Yes. So Taryn will be taken over as the membership director. And so you'll see our information here on a slide here in a second. But something that we always do at these events is who's hiring and who's looking, right? And a lot of the time this community gets together because we want to support each other in our career paths. And a lot of that is I'm looking for a new job, or I'm hiring someone at my job. So I'll let NXP, Jessica, if you want to unmute, and then Erika talk about Amazon jobs you guys are hiring right now. But then we want to hear from you guys here in the audience. There's still 60 people on here. Unmute or put in the chat if you're actively looking or if you are hiring. Jessica, if you want to go in now.
Sure. Yeah. So first, before I get started on the slide, I just want to say tonight was amazing. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you for your valuable time, your insights, and being so authentic. Jennifer, thank you for moderating. You did an awesome job. Very comfortable conversation. I thought all the attendees were very active in the chat, and I don't know how to save the chat, but somebody else is going to do that and send it to me because there was all those tidbits in there. And then thank you for Austin Women in Technology for partnering with us. I've been a member for 3 years, and if you're not a member, I really recommend that you join. So with that though, there will be a slide coming out. I don't know if you guys can see it. There it is. We are hiring. So, and in general, it's design, product and test, manufacturing operations, business operations, global sales and marketing. So please check out this website. If you have any questions, reach out to myself or Jennifer. And next, I'll hand it over to Erika to talk about Amazon opportunities.
I'm talking about Amazon?
Oh, another Erika.
She meant Erika Trudeau. I know every time she was asking you to speak, I kept thinking, okay, which Erika are we talking about? Yeah, so I'm Erika with Amazon. We have a lot of opportunities here in Austin as we continue to grow. One of Amazon's core values is our customer obsession, and it definitely flows into the interview experience that you get. So for instance, for our technical positions that we have at Amazon, whether that's engineering, program management, business intelligence, your interview is usually comprised of 2 different parts. One part is going to be some behavioral based questions, and then the other part is going to be focused on that technical piece. And one of the things that you can experience when you're going through that interview part, that interview process, is really that partnership that you have with your recruiting team. We take a lot of joy in helping people prep for their interview. We really try to remove that ambiguity, giving you lots of insights into the kind of questions you'll be asked, what we're looking for in those responses. There's also opportunities to join different interview prep workshops and have one-on-one prep or coaching calls with your recruiter. We're definitely growing here in the Austin market for a lot of technical roles. So if you're interested in those, I think on the last slide, it will have Ashley Gurick and myself. You feel free to reach out to either one of us. The positions that are up on the slide right now are the ones that we actively are recruiting for here in Austin.
Awesome. And again, at the end of this, everyone will get an email with a follow-up. You'll get this event that was recorded. Not the chat, that is not going to be in that, but so make sure you save that. But the event that was recorded, as well as all these jobs and some of these tidbits in there and the contact information. So absolutely, if you are looking, please make sure that you post in here, but connect with everyone, right? Connect with each other that you met in these networking groups, connect with the speakers, reach out to NXP and Amazon's chairs. But no, we'll keep chatting in here. I know Deirdre, if you want to unmute, our wonderful speaker just mentioned that she's hiring for a part-time contractor for web content. Do you want to elaborate, Deirdre?
Yeah, sure. So I've got several openings right now. I'm hiring for a part-time web contract role for doing web content, as well as anybody who's into learning new sort of emerging digital technologies. This will be great. I'll be doing a lot of web personalization and things like that. I'm also hiring for a communications specialist to help with our social media and PR. And then I have several internships over the next several semesters.
Awesome. And I know NXP also is looking for a sales account manager for calling on Amazon. So we'll get our two sponsors here connected on a job there. So definitely check out the chat for that one. Terry said that the city of Austin's hiring for a senior IT PM. So again, we'll post all of this in the email. And we also post this in our Slack. Again, if you become an Austin Women in Technology member, you will have a link to all of this. And that's where we're able to actually connect you with the person that's doing the hiring directly through the chat. So Jaya, I know you said you're hiring for a senior manager of analytics. Do you want to unmute and elaborate?
Yeah, hi all. And I actually really have to credit, I've known Jessica Cooper personally. She's a damn good potluck poster as well, obviously not during COVID times, for about 10 years. But I have to credit her for my current role because I showed up to an event in which she's speaking about women empowerment in technology. And I ended up applying to a job at that location where I'm now the head of analytics there. And so I'm about wrapping up my first year there. And I used to work at Whole Foods/Amazon prior to this. So I'm hiring a few roles as senior manager of analytics, revenue, and marketing. So anybody who really loves digital marketing or knows folks that are, channel mix, A/B testing, all that fun stuff. And then I'm also hiring a senior revenue, or maybe not seniors, opportunity to be senior revenue analyst, and also a marketing analyst. So those are the 3 roles on my team. And I work for a company called The Zebra. They've been around in Austin 7 years, but they're really taking off. 200% year-over-year growth. We've added 100 new people since I joined last year. Really exciting and good. So if you've got any questions, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. And they've got lots of really good, we're a very product-focused company, so lots of really good data and tech jobs open and available. So we're hiring.
Awesome. Joy, do you want to unmute, or definitely feel free to just jump in, y'all?
I'm actually looking for a job. So I saw the way I wrote that and I was like, oh, wait, I'm looking for one. So yeah, I am a diversity and inclusion consultant and I'm a university professor. So I teach culture, equity, and advocacy. And I also wrote a book about women, supporting women. So I'm in Seattle right now, but I actually want to get out of here. It's too gray and cold. And y'all are talking about cold, but I live in Austin too. So I'm just kind of back and forth between the 2 places. So yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities out there for the D&I roles. And so I'm just looking for that and trying to kind of get entrenched in Austin. So.
Awesome. Rosa, I know we got to meet in the networking earlier. Do you want to chime in on what you're looking for a job too? And if not, that's okay. We'll connect everyone at the end.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was saying that I'm looking for opportunities in customer success management and incident management, and also in corporate social responsibility. And I have, I'm available for relocation.
Awesome. And I think that's been one of the best things too about AWT virtually is we've gotten people from all over, right? And people who want to move to Austin or, you know, escaped Austin from the heat when this first started, but absolutely. We'll keep it coming here in the chat. But we have an event coming up here in the next few weeks all about overcoming your inner critic. So definitely be on the lookout for that event on November 11th, as well as a hackathon that we have. And we're actually still looking for people to be a part of the hackathon. So if you're interested in that as well, please reach out to us. But we hope, you know, whether you joined because you're an AWT member or NXP/Amazon invited you, we appreciate you being here. Reach out to Taryn at membership@awtaustin.org. I also popped that in the chat. But keep your jobs coming. We'll save these in the chat after. We'll make sure they come out in the follow-up. But we really hope you guys will join us for our next events. You do not have to be a member to attend. It's just free if you are an AWT member. But if you want to stick around and come up for the next event here in November, check us out again. We'd love to have you, especially again for the hackathon. We are still looking for some people for some teams. So I know, Anna, you just said, ooh, hackathon. And I thought it was very fascinating. You don't really have to know as much as you think you do to be a part of a hackathon. So definitely let us know if you're interested. Don't let that inner critic tell you that you can't do it.
I placed third at the data science hackathon for NXP last year. So just play.
Yes, congrats. We have a channel in Slack called Applaud Her. So I'd have to put you in there for that.
Can I plug something real quick?
Yeah, of course, Tanya.
On the same day, but a different time, and I'm dropping the link here, but November 17th at 1 p.m. Central, I think, I'm doing a free negotiation class. So this is actually geared towards entrepreneurs, but anyone can join in, and we're going to have a simulation around negotiating a business contract during the pandemic. And so if you want practice in pairing up with somebody in a low stakes environment to practice negotiation skills, please sign up. We do one free session a quarter, and we'd love to have you.
Awesome. Well, feel free to stick around. Yeah.
How do we sign up for that, Tanya?
Which one? Oh, it's the bit.ly link. I just dropped a bit.ly link in the chat. Here's the class.
Oh, I saw the hackathon. Okay, got it.
Yeah, there's the thing again. And I'd love to connect with everybody on LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram or all the different, not TikTok, not TikTok. I don't do TikTok. I watch TikTok videos, but yeah, I'd love to help folks with that. And also maybe I'm going to sign up for the hackathon because I feel bad about pitching on something that's the same day as something y'all are doing.
Don't worry about it. Hey, we just want to support each other. So that's amazing.
And also all these things happen after the election, right? So we need ways to connect with one another after the election, regardless of what happens. You know.
Absolutely.
Heather, I'm going to chime in and give a little bit more background on the hackathon. So what we're doing on the 17th is the actual like hacking part of the hackathon. And then we're going to have the teams that participate. And I did put the link if you're interested in joining. We're looking for 15 to 20-ish people to form the teams. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to be having our last event of the year will be December 3rd, I believe. I think it's Thursday, December 3rd. And that full AWT event is where we're going to judge the hackathon. So we're going to have the people like come up with the solution to the problem we're giving, and then they're going to present to the full AWT group, and then the whole AWT group is going to get to determine the winner. So it's kind of an introduction. So we're kind of making it into two parts. Because I've never done a hackathon. I'm not a coder, and I thought you had to be a coder to do this. So I'm excited to have any participation in this at all, just to see how not technical you have to be to come up with. It's just really a problem solving test. And then we're going to have our general members participate on the 3rd so that we can have a full participation and introduce the idea to everyone.
Awesome. Well, feel free to stick around, panelists, stick around if you guys are able to, if anyone else has further questions, hear more about NXP and Amazon. If you're looking for a job, awesome opportunity to get connected with those two amazing companies. But again, thank you so much for showing up, investing in yourself, and being engaged and collaborative tonight in the chat and with all the questions. So we appreciate y'all. We love this community.
Thank you, Heather.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye, y'all. Have a great night.
Thank you. It was great.